You might think your cooking needs better or more exotic ingredients. It doesn't. Or maybe you just want to try something different with the meals you already make for you and your loved ones. You already own everything you need. You're just using it like it's 2010. I spent 2 years living in Osaka and burned more rice than I'll admit to.
My name is Lin, and I'm a former Michelin-star chef. And tonight I'm going to share some simple techniques and ingredients to elevate any of your dishes.
What Japanese home cooks do differently isn't a secret ingredient. It's a different relationship with the ingredients everyone already has in their kitchen, and it doesn't require any extra work or special skills. Stick around for number 6. It's the reason your soup tastes thin, even when you follow the recipe exactly. Number 3 is going to sound like a myth. It isn't. There's a 100-year-old science paper behind it.
And at the very end, I'll give you a 2-minute test you can run on your own pantry tonight to see how many of these you're already halfway doing.
We're going 10 down to 1. First 4 are things you can do to any ingredient you already own. Next 3 are about timing. The same ingredient, used at the wrong moment, does nothing. Last 3 are the ones that explain why Japanese cooking tastes the way it does at a chemical level. And that last one will change how you think about seasoning permanently. 10. Kombu turns any liquid into a flavor bomb. Picture this: a plain pot of water and a piece of dried kelp about the size of a playing card dropped in before the heat goes on. Kombu is loaded with glutamates, the compound behind umami, the 5th taste, formally identified by Japanese chemist Kikunai Ikeda in 1908.
As it sits in cold liquid, those glutamates leach out slowly, deepening everything in the pot, without adding a flavor you can actually name.
Here's the stakes. Skip it, and your soup tastes like a soup. Use it, and your soup tastes like it simmered all day with ingredients you never bought. Takeaway: before you drop the kombu, dried kelp, into your pot of water, make a few shallow cuts or slashes across its surface with a knife. Release more glutamate, remove before serving, and a $3 pack lasts months. Cost contrast, because it's real. A $3 bag of kombu does more for a pot of soup than a $15 bottle of umami seasoning from the specialty aisle. Same compound, wildly different price. The first time I actually measured this, I made 2 pots of the same vegetable soup side by side. One plain, one with a piece of kombu dropped in cold.
No other differences. The plain pot tasted fine. The kombu pot tasted like I'd added something I couldn't name.
That side-by-side test is honestly what convinced me this list wasn't just internet folklore. 9. Bonito flakes are a flavor delivery system, not a garnish. Most people scatter these dried, fermented, and smoked tuna flakes on top of a dish like they're sprinkles. Wrong instinct. The mechanism, Bonito flakes, release inosinate. On its own, it's mild.
Combined with the glutamate in kombu, the two create umami intensity that Ikeda's successors later measured at roughly 8 times what either produces alone.
That's not marketing language. That's the actual synergy behind why dashi tastes the way it does. Takeaway: pile a handful on anything hot right out of the pan, noodles, rice, tofu, and let the heat open the flakes before you mix it in. 8. Miso is a marinade, not just a soup base. Real quick, notice if your last miso dish was just miso soup. For most of us, that's the entire relationship.
Mix miso with a little mirin and sake to loosen it. Spread it directly on fish, chicken, or tofu and let it sit, 2 hours minimum, up to 3 days.
The salt draws moisture out and re-seasons the protein from inside. The fermentation enzymes tenderize the surface. Under heat, the sugars caramelize into a char you'd otherwise need a professional broiler to get. Wipe off the excess before it hits the pan. Leave it on and it burns bitter in under a minute. I learned the wipe it off part the hard way. Left a thick layer of miso on a salmon fillet under the broiler and walked away for 90 seconds too long.
Came back to something closer to charcoal than dinner.
Now I treat that wipe down step as non-negotiable, the same way I treat preheating a pan. 7. Nori is a seasoning, not a wrapper. When's the last time Nori touched anything that wasn't a sushi roll? Torn or scissor cut over eggs, pasta, avocado, roasted vegetables. It adds a concentrated, faintly smoky umami with genuinely no Western equivalent. Treat it the way you treat black pepper. Reach for it as a reflex, not a special occasion. From here down, we're not talking about what ingredients to use anymore. We're talking about when. Same pantry, completely different result, based on one thing: timing. 6. Mirin, added at the wrong time, does almost nothing. This is the one I promised you at the top. Most non-Japanese cooking adds this rice wine early as background sweetness. That's the mistake. Added in the last 2 minutes over high heat, and the sugars caramelize rapidly on the surface, creating a glossy, sticky lacquer that looks and tastes like something out of a restaurant kitchen. Added early, over a long simmer, and those same sugars just quietly burn off or turn bitter before they ever get the chance to glaze anything. Takeaway: one timing change. Every protein you cook after this looks and tastes different. For years, I added mirin at the same time as everything else going into the pan, and I genuinely thought I just didn't have the knack for glazes. Moving it to the last 2 minutes was the single smallest change on this entire list and the most noticeable difference in the final plate. 5. Sake doesn't mask odor. It removes it. Pour a tablespoon of sake over fish or meat. Let it sit 5 minutes. Pat dry. Cook normally. Mechanism, plainly. Sake binds to and neutralizes the specific volatile compounds responsible for fishy or gamey smell. It's not covering the odor up with a stronger smell. It's chemically pulling the actual compound out.
As a side effect, it tendernizes slightly and adds a faint sweetness.
This one changed how I feel about cooking fish at home at all. I used to buy fish and let it sit in the fridge because I dreaded the smell it left in the kitchen. The sack trick was the reason I started cooking it the same day again instead of putting it off. 4. Japanese Worcestershire, added at the wrong moment, becomes background noise. Tonkatsu sauce is sweeter, fruitier, and more layered than the Western version. Cooked into a dish, all of that gets flattened by heat and time.
Drizzled on at the very end over fried food, grilled meat, a fried egg on rice, it stays vivid instead of disappearing into the background.
Takeaway: same ingredient, opposite result, depending entirely on when it touches heat. Last 3. This is where we stop talking about ingredients one at a time and talk about why Japanese cooking as a whole system tastes the way it does. 3. This is the one that sounds like a myth. It isn't. I told you at the top, this one has a 100-year-old paper behind it. So let's address the objection some of you already have. People in America will often ask, isn't umami just MSG? Isn't that the stuff people say is bad for you? Here's the honest, dual answer.
Glutamate, the compound in kombu, in parmesan, in tomatoes, in miso, is chemically the same compound in MSG.
And the decades of MSG headache claims have been extensively studied and not supported. Major health bodies, including the FDA, classify it as generally recognized as safe. What's actually happening in Japanese cooking isn't a trick or an additive. It's the exact same naturally occurring compound, sourced from food instead of a shaker. Japanese cooks have understood this as depth or richness for centuries, long before anyone had a name for it. It's a specific, measurable amino acid interaction, first isolated and named in 1908, and still an active area of food science today.
Both things are true at once. That's the honest version.
2. White miso, the one ingredient that does the most for the least. If you take exactly one thing from this video, take this. Stir a spoonful of white miso, shiro miso, the mildest variety, into softened butter, and you have a compound butter with more complexity than anything you'd buy pre-made. Whisk it into a dressing with rice vinegar and sesame oil, and you get a creamy, savory dressing with zero cream in it. Use it in place of Parmesan in a pasta sauce, and the glutamates do the exact same job the cheese would have done.
Cost contrast. A tub of white miso costs about the same as a wedge of Parmesan and does more work across more dishes for months out of your fridge.
1. Umami stacking. The peak. Here's the real payoff, and I want to be careful with the language here, because the actual science is impressive enough without exaggerating it. Glutamate sources don't add together, they multiply.
Combine kombu with dried shiitake. 2 different umami compounds, glutamate and guanylate, and you don't get double the flavor.
Get a version of savory that neither ingredient could produce alone, at an intensity meaningfully higher than the sum of the two. This is the actual chemistry behind why a bowl of dashi-based miso soup can taste more satisfying than a bowl of chicken stock that took 3 times as long to make.
This isn't a fountain of youth claim. It's not going to reverse anything or cure anything.
It's a real, well-documented flavor mechanism that Japanese home cooks have been quietly exploiting for over a century, and most of us never learned it exists. Here's something you can do tonight in under 2 minutes. Open your fridge and pantry and count how many of these you already own. And here is a comprehensive checklist for your next shopping trip. Kombu. Drop a piece in cold liquid before heating. Score it. Remove before serving. Bonito flakes. Pile on hot food right before serving, not as a cold garnish. Miso marinade. Mix with mirin plus sake. Marinate 2 hours to 3 days. Wipe off before cooking.
Nori. Tear or scissor cut over eggs, pasta, or salads like a seasoning, not just sushi.
Mirin. Add in the final 2 minutes over high heat, never early in the cook. Sake. Pour over raw fish/meat. Rest 5 minutes, pat dry, then cook. Japanese Worcestershire, tonkatsu sauce. Drizzle on at the very end, never mid-cook. Glutamate is not dangerous. It's the same compound as MSG, and it's food, not an additive to fear.
White miso, stir into butter, dressing, or pasta sauce in place of Parmesan.
Umami stacking. Combine 2+ sources, kombu plus shiitake, tomato plus Parmesan, in the same dish for a multiplied effect, not just an additive one. None of this requires a specialty store you don't have access to or a skill you don't already have. It requires knowing what's actually in the ingredients sitting in your kitchen right now, most of which most of us were never taught to see past their most obvious use. That's really what this whole list comes down to. Not new ingredients, just paying attention to the ones you've already got.
Tell me in the comments, which one of these are you already doing without realizing it? And which one are you trying tonight?
If you want more of this, real technique, real sourcing, nothing invented to make a thumbnail pop, subscribe. There's a lot more of this kind of knowledge worth sharing, and I don't want you to miss the next one. Next time, the one Japanese pantry staple that sits in almost every American kitchen already gets used exactly once a year and should honestly be in your weekly rotation.
You've got it in your cabinet right now. You just don't know it yet.